senators, and representatives, I have the distinguished honor of presenting.
The late 19th and early 20th centuries marked a turning point in U.S. history. What began as a young nation focused on internal growth transformed into a global power driven by military strength, economic ambitions, and imperial strategies. Let's examine how America's rise on the world stage reshaped its role in history. American expansionism was not an isolated phenomenon. It was rooted in earlier ideas like manifest destiny, which justified the westward movement across the continent. By the late 1800s, however, the focus shifted beyond U.S. borders to global influence. Key motivations included economic opportunities, new markets for trade and access to natural resources abroad, military strategy, establishing naval bases and projecting power globally, and cultural influence, a belief in spreading democracy and capitalism, often tied to the idea of the white man's burden. One critical component of U.S. expansionism was its growing military strength. In his book The Influence of Sea Power Upon History, 1890, Alfred Thayer Mahan argued that naval supremacy was key to national greatness. His ideas spurred the U.S. to build a modern navy, including battleships like the USS Maine. The Spanish-American War in 1898 demonstrated America's military might and resulted in significant territorial gains, including Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. Building the Panama Canal from 1904 to 1914 was a strategic move to connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, strengthening U.S. naval capabilities and trade routes. Trade played a central role in U.S. expansionism. The open door policy in 1899 advocated for equal trade opportunities in China, aiming to prevent European powers from monopolizing the Chinese market. U.S. economic interests in sugar production led to the annexation of Hawaii in 1898, securing a strategic location in the Pacific. Companies like United Fruit in Central America became symbols of America's economic reach and influence, often referred to as banana republics. The late 19th century saw the U.S. actively acquiring territories. Following the Spanish-American War, the annexation of the Philippines faced resistance from Filipino revolutionaries led by Emilio Aguinaldo. The Philippine-American War from 1899 to 1902 highlighted the challenges of imperial rule. While Cuba gained nominal independence, the Platt Amendment in 1901 allowed the U.S. to retain significant control over its affairs, including the right to intervene militarily. Guam and Puerto Rico became key outposts for trade and military operations in the Caribbean and Pacific. Expansionism was often justified through cultural and ideological lenses. Social Darwinism promoted the belief that stronger nations had the right to dominate weaker ones. The white man's burden, coined by Rudyard Kipling, suggested it was America's duty to civilize other nations. American missionaries played a role in spreading Christianity and Western values in Asia and the Pacific. Several individuals played pivotal roles in this era. Theodore Roosevelt, a staunch advocate for expansion, emphasized military strength to achieve foreign policy goals through his big stick diplomacy. William McKinley oversaw the annexation of Hawaii and led the nation during the Spanish-American War. Frederick Jackson Turner argued that American expansion was essential for democracy, framing imperialism as a continuation of manifest destiny. Theodore Roosevelt famously said, "Speak softly and carry a big stick. You will go far," highlighting the U.S. approach to diplomacy. Between 1898 and 1902, the U.S. acquired 5 new territories, increasing its global reach dramatically. The Great White Fleet, a naval tour of 16 battleships from 1907 to 1909, showcased American power to the world. While expansionism elevated the U.S. to world power status, it came with significant consequences. Territories like the Philippines resisted American rule, leading to prolonged conflicts. Critics like Mark Twain and the Anti-Imperialist League opposed imperialism, arguing it contradicted American values of self-determination. Many of the territories acquired remain under U.S. control today, such as Guam and Puerto Rico, raising questions about sovereignty and representation. By the early 20th century, the United States had firmly established itself as a global power. Its influence shaped international trade, military strategy, and cultural ideals. The expansionist policies of this era set the stage for America's leadership role in world affairs during the 20th century. American expansionism was a defining chapter in U.S. history. It reflected the nation's ambition and determination, but also highlighted the complexities and contradictions of becoming a global power. As students of history, understanding this era helps us recognize the roots of America's modern influence and the responsibilities that come with it.